This lady went down to the pet store. What do you buy in a pet store? What do you get in a pet store sometimes? Anybody come in one? What kind of pets? Any kind, like what? Cats and dogs, hamsters, fish. Sure. Well, this lady goes into this pet store and she buys a parrot. She wants it to keep her company, so she takes the parrot home and she puts the parrot in the cage, and she comes back to the store the next day and says, the parrot didn't speak, didn't say anything. So the lady in the pet store says, you have a mirror in that cage? Because the parrots like to look in the mirror. So she bought a mirror. She took it home, she put it in the cage. Came back the next morning, still not speaking, the parrot. She said, you have a ladder that goes up and down? Kind of a ladder. The parrots like to go up and down ladders. She bought the ladder. She put the ladder in the cage. Came back the next day, exasperated. Come on, this bird doesn't speak. This parrot's not talking to me. The lady says, I bet you don't have a bell in that cage. So she bought the bell. They like to hear the noise, the parrots, when they're walking around. So she bought the bell and she put the bell in the cage. The next day, the parrot died. The parrot died. And she stormed into the pet store. And she said, that parrot you sold me died. And the lady said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She said, did the parrot ever speak before he died? And she said, yes, he did speak. What did he say? He said, doesn't that store have food? And that's why you guys are here today, because in order to grow today in our life with Jesus and our relationship with Jesus, the most important relationship we're ever going to have. And I was telling them, moms and dads, before we came down to Center Isle, that this may be the most important day of their life, because the best sacrament we have of the 7 sacraments is today, communion. This is not the first sacrament, and your moms and dads got married, and I was ordained. Those are other sacraments. You guys made reconciliation. But the most important of the 7 sacraments is communion. And you can receive it today. You can receive it every day of your life, and certainly on Sunday. But to eat at this table is where the best food in town comes from. And this is how you grow with Jesus and grow in your relationship with Jesus, which at the end of the day is the most important relationship we're ever going to have. And that's important. Just like you have, if you guys stopped eating your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you wouldn't be as tall as some of your cousins or brothers and sisters. Yet, in our spiritual life, we got to eat Jesus' body and blood. We are delighted to have you at the table tonight. Let me talk to the moms and dads and grandpas for a minute. The gospel I read today is really, really an important piece. Literature-wise and theologically, it's one of the most important pieces you'll ever hear. It's at the very end of St. John's Gospel. Last week at my Easter Masses, I shared a quote from one of my favorite poets, William Butler Yeats, who, in talking about the uprising 100 years ago that lit the Irish Rebellion, a poem called Easter 1916, he says, everything changed utterly. And that could be said about the Irish Revolution, but it can be said about Easter, period. Because of Easter, everything has changed, and death doesn't have the final word anymore. And so today, you heard that story. This is Jesus on the first Easter, later that night. And you heard the story. First day of the week, and Sunday, our best day. First day of the week, Jesus shows up. The apostles, where are they? They're still in the upper room. They're hiding. They're nervous. They're scared. Sin. It's a real symbol of sin. Their own egos. They were still thinking about themselves. And the third thing Jesus does, he comes through the doors, even though they're locked. No obstacles will prevent Jesus from touching you and I. And he transcends all time and all space. And he comes in. You don't have to invite him in. He's there. And he comes in the locked door. And then, does he show up? Now, to be honest with you, if I came back from the dead, I'd go to the guys that killed me first. I would have showed up, and I would see Herod and Caiaphas and Anna. I want a little revenge. Jesus comes back, not to those guys. He comes back to his old posse, who kind of abandoned him. And he comes back, and he's friendly. He says, peace be with you. The fourth thing that happens in that story. And they said, they were afraid. What's he going to say? We all ran when they hung him on the tree. We weren't there to watch. We couldn't watch it. Only St. John and the women were at the foot of the cross. And so he took off. And and then what he does is he breathed on them. And basically it was their confirmation. He said, I'm sending you out to everybody and bring them all back to this table to eat this food that I'm preparing for you, my body and my blood. He said, bring everybody back. That's the mission of the church. And he breathed on them the Spirit, which will unpack the apostles and you and I, the rest of our lives, the power of the Spirit in us. And then the tragedy of it all is that one of the members isn't there. And that's Thomas. And really symbolic of if you're separated from the community, and that's what Thomas was in that story. He's separated from the community. He wasn't at the table. 11 guys were eating at the table, but not Thomas. And when you're separated, you don't grow. And you got to be joined to the community and the sacraments. The second week, Thomas is there, and that devastating moment, he says, like a lot of us though, don't be subtle, Jesus. Don't, say what you mean. If you want me, give me a little shout. But Thomas was skeptical, and he says, I'm not going to believe until I run my fingers through the nail holes. And that's when Jesus appeared the second time and said, peace again. And then Thomas takes a look at him, and the greatest affirmation in the New Testament is, my Lord and my God. Powerful. God bless you. Congratulations.